Jillian, thank you so much for willing to share your personal story, how you somehow through self-healing have reduced significantly your back pain. And I hope that by sharing that, maybe other students and patients can see that there are possibilities when we often feel hopeless. And so in that sense, can you maybe just start to explain what happened to you? How did you get the pain, if that's okay?
Yeah, definitely. So in January of 2021, I was in a motorcycle accident. And the motorcycle accident was pretty severe. It fractured my L3 vertebra, which was the main cause of the back pain. And I fractured my left shoulder, and then I broke both sides of my jaw. So it was a lot. But and I know that all of it was connected, but the main source of pain was my back. So I underwent 2 surgeries where they went in and removed the broken pieces. They called it a burst fracture. They removed all the broken pieces of the L3, and they inserted a cage, which looked like a metal spring kind of, and then they fused that with a metal bar on each side to the L4 and L2 vertebra above and below. And then I did a bunch of physical therapy and just kind of continued from there.
And so that was in the January of 2021.
Mm-hmm. So it's been about a year and a half.
Yes. And then since that time, did you take medications? How did you deal with the discomfort, or did you have discomfort afterwards?
Yes, lots. And I was on a lot of medication when I was in the hospital and when I left the hospital until March of 2021. I was on, oh my God, I was on like Norcos, Advil, Tylenol, Baclofen, and one other that I can't, gabapentin, and that's the one. And then the first one I stopped taking were the Norcos because I really wanted to stop taking those. And then I got rid of the Advil and the Tylenol, and then I was still taking the Baclofen and the gabapentin. And I took that daily 3 times a day, all the way up until March of 2022. So over a year.
Yes. And so you ended up in the holistic health class, right? You took this class and then you did practice. So maybe what did you do in a sense, or by which I would, your pain seems to have significantly been reduced. So if you can describe what you did, that would be very helpful, because there are so many other people who have equal pain or different issues, and what can they do? And so maybe you can describe your story.
Yeah, I definitely took the holistic health class for my recovery. Like I was interested in the class as was. Like I first saw it when I first applied, like was picking classes in 2020 for SF State. So I was like, I would love to take that class. And then when the accident happened, I was like, I have to take that class now. So I actually enrolled in fall of 21, but I had a really heavy class load and I had just gone back to work and I was still dealing with my PT and recovery. So, and this is kind of a heavy class. So I dropped it. And then I was like, I will take it next semester. So I stuck to my word. I took it the following semester. And in terms of the class, what helped me the most were all of the factors combined. So I would say like all of the factors combined. So that would be like the lesson that we learned on how your posture affects what memories you pull up. I started like when I would get really down thinking about the accident, or I'd have like really, really like, and especially in the mornings for some odd reason, I get really emotional in the mornings when I wake up. And I would just like, I would feel like so sad and, thinking like, I'm going to be in pain forever. Like, this is such a weird injury. Like, this is definitely lifelong. And then I would like, remember that lesson and I'd be like, okay, it sucks. Yes, it sucks, but that's okay. Like we're moving forward and like just keeping like my shoulders back really, like you don't notice it. It's almost like when you take Advil and you don't realize that you have when your headache went away, but all of a sudden 20 minutes later, your headache's gone. It's kind of like that. Like I didn't really notice when my mood changed, but it changed. And so then I would kind of that kind of helped me with my motivation. And then the imagery, talking a lot about like when Elise Schafferman came and talked about the Alexander technique and kind of talked about that, kind of tied in with the lesson that we had on pulling the safe memory from our childhood and just feeling safe in my body. And that's when I started to realize that I didn't feel safe in my body, that I felt very uncomfortable and nervous that I was going to hurt myself again, or another injury was inevitable or something like that. So I focused on that feeling of safety, and I started with trying to bring myself to that memory, which for me was swimming out. I would swim a lot when I was younger at my Nana's house, because again, Bakersfield, very hot. So everyone has a pool, and my Nana and my Tata, they moved to a house that didn't have a pool, and I was the youngest grandchild, and I really wanted a pool. So my Tata put a pool in, and ever since then I was the queen of that pool. And my safe memory was me laying on the sidewalk or on the concrete right outside the deep end, just letting myself air dry. And that was the foundation that I used for the self-healing project, because then I was like, okay, I imagined then the Wise One practice. When we did that one, I imagined myself in that scenario as well. And it kind of helped me. Hold on, let me backtrack. So when we did the Wise One practice, I was
just
able
to clarify, the Wise One practice where you really get quiet and essentially you almost go either up a mountain path or whatever, or you connect to someone, you see a Wise One in your imagery and you ask the Wise One a question. And the Wise One can be a spirit, it can be an animal, it can just be a thought, it's unimportant, but you really are quiet, you ask your meaningful question, and then you listen carefully to the answer in any form it would come. And it's always impressive, and students do this, or people do it, that even the first time they do it, about 60% of students will connect with a Wise One. If many of them do it after, about almost all will have a connection. For some, it's a person, sometimes an animal, or sometimes it's just a felt sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I did feel a connection when I did that, and I was on a path the first time, and then I combined that with the safe memory I had, and my self-healing project then became me imagining myself sitting or laying on my stomach on the concrete and feeling the sun on my back and warming up my back. And then that's what then transferred to the sun's arms, becoming the tools for me to help relieve the pain.
And the Wise One basically also, I think, may have given you a message to almost like trust or wait, right?
Wait, yeah, yeah. And that was a big thing for me, because again, like I would get very overwhelmed. Like, I'm going to be in my 70s still suffering. And like, it's like, why am I thinking about my 70s? I'm in my 20s. Like, what am I doing? And so I think that's a big message for me, was like, be patient with yourself, like wait, like it's going to be okay. And yeah, that helped me a lot.
And then you also did imagery in a sense where you saw a healing process. How did you do that, or what was that like?
So I combined the like safe memory and the Wise One experience. And then that's what led me to the whole self-healing imagery. And I was laying on the concrete. I made it a point to remember like some of the cues that you had talked about. So like my Nana, it just so happens to be perfect that my Nana has a huge wind chime in her backyard. She's had my whole life. So I could hear it in my head. So that was big. I would imagine that. I would imagine like what the grass would look like from this angle of laying on the concrete and feeling the heat, and then from the sun. And I incorporated the Wise One. So I imagined what Wise One I experienced was a female energy, I guess I'll just say. And it felt like it was a version of me telling me what to do. Like some people say like a higher self or something along those lines. Yeah, just maybe maybe just my own subconscious. So I think that's what told me to wait. So I imagined that part of me coming and kneeling down beside me while I'm still laying down and blowing like the air, their breath over my lower back. And I realized that and the sun's arms, which was the other tool that I imagined the sun going in, because at the time it felt that my muscles were they were frigid, like they were rock hard, they were frozen, they'd been through so much, they were probably like in shell shock from everything, and they needed to relax. And in order to get them to relax, they needed to warm up. And so that was a theme that I found. So I imagined the sun's arms going in and kind of holding, especially my QL, those back there, like holding those muscles and kind of just defrosting them and relaxing them and, taking away the tension. And that is that's what became the tool. So it combined the wise one and the safe memory. And then I combined those two to create the tool. And I imagined the warmth and then the breath combining together to help heal the muscles and the spine. And then I imagined myself. The main thing I really tried to imagine when I thought of myself healed was the word like movement and flexible. Like I tried to imagine like my back can move perfectly and that kind of step process.
So what I hear is that when you imagine something, it wasn't just something outside you, but a sense of feeling it inside you. Is that correct?
Definitely. Yeah, there was definitely, excuse me. There was definitely a sense of feeling it inside of me, not just physically, but the feeling of knowing that it's more in my control than I'm realizing or than I had realized before. And I mean, going through something big like that, if you haven't before, like it can seem like you don't have any control over the situation. But I think what was nice about knowing that I came up with the whole setting, me laying down on the concrete, hearing the wind chime, knowing that I came up with that and that I felt that the other energy was a part of me, also healing me. I feel like that was allowed me to feel it emotionally and physically, I guess you could say.
And there are really two parts. One is you did this both as a sort of intensive practice, let's say for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you also do something like that during the day? Because obviously you may have felt tightness during the day or pain. What did you do at those moments?
So during the day, it was a little bit more difficult for me because I was working, or not working, I was like doing classes from home and stuff. And that unfortunately is a lot of like sitting down and sitting in a 90-degree angle, which just doesn't always feel the best. So I would think of two main things. I would try to think of the safe place. So I would try to think of the wind chime because it's so fresh in my head. And then I would try to think of, again, like movement, I would just wiggle, like becoming a wiggler, which is what you had said in class. So I would do that. And it helped a lot, because especially I use those practices now because my job, like I was saying earlier, it's flexible. I can work from home. I don't have to come into the office. And even when I'm in the office, I'm also sitting down. So it's nice that I've gotten some of those skills and set.
And so let me just ask one more question. And so what happened to your medication and pain?
I originally broke pain down I originally didn't break pain down. And I realized that was too large of a term. So I realized I wasn't always in pain. I was more uncomfortable a lot of the time. So I then broke it down into tightness and sharp pains. And the sharp pains were the ones that really scared me because that always worried me what I was feeling. And the tightness I knew was something that would take a little bit more work to to make go away. So, and at the time, again, I was still taking gabapentin and baclofen 3 times a day. I was taking 10 milligrams of baclofen and 300 to 600 milligrams of gabapentin, both 3 times a day. And gabapentin is a nerve pain. So it messed with my sleep if I didn't take it. And it was a very uncomfortable feeling because part of the accident was obviously the nerves were severed from my L3. So I lost feeling in the top of my thigh. And it's very slow coming back, but it's extremely sensitive, very, very sensitive. It feels like it's like a sleep a lot of the time. And so when I wouldn't take gabapentin, it was just this really uncomfortable, just really bad nerve pain in my left thigh. So I was really nervous to stop taking the gabapentin because of that pain. But I really, again, I wanted to be off of the pain meds. That was one of my main goals. So when I think it was the 3rd week of my, of this self-healing project that I just ran out of my pills, and I was like, what if I just don't refill them? Like, what if I just give it a chance? And I could just call Walgreens if not. So I did that. That night I was just like, what? I just kept it to myself. I was like, we're just going to do you and let's see what we can do. I did my practice. I did it a little bit longer that night. So I was really ready to sleep hard when I was done. And I couldn't do it too late because the practice did make me sleepy, and I did fall asleep a couple times during my practice. So I had to time it well, but I was able to stop taking my medicine. I didn't take it from then. I didn't taper or anything. I just cold turkey, both of them.
That's not normally recommended, by the way.
I know. I was about to say, I was like, that doesn't mean
okay.
Everyone should do that. That does not mean that. It just worked out well for me. And so I knew if I didn't have them in the house, I wasn't going to be tempted. And since then, I have picked up a prescription of 1 bottle of each, and I keep them in my safe just in case I get a random bout of pain. And
you have never used it yet.
I haven't touched them. Yeah.
And that is already since today is July 26th. And you have not been using it since
March.
Yeah,
so it's like April, May.
You have been pain-free.
4 months.
4 months. And at the end of the project, to what extent did your pain change or your tightness change?
So my sharp pains almost completely eliminated. And there's still like maybe one every 2 days, maybe one every 3 days. And before it was daily and frequently throughout the day. And the tightness decreased, I would say like 40% to 50%. Like I definitely cut that in half. And since then I felt a little bit more, again, power over my body and a little bit more control. So I've kind of ventured back into yoga because I did yoga before the accident. So that's kind of been something nice to keep the movement going in my back.
As you look back over the time period, what was of the healing project? What was most challenging for you?
Routine, keeping it in a routine is really difficult, especially when you're going to school, you're probably working too, you're maybe doing an internship, who knows, maybe you're part of some Greek life. There's a lot of different changing schedules, I would say. And so finding when you can fit that time in is really important. But it's also important because building that routine helps you implement other healthy habits into your routine as well. So since then, I have tried to keep up not just the yoga, but like I'll try to keep up all the lessons with the posture and Elise, I have seen her a couple times. So since then that's the difficult part, but that's also the most rewarding part as well.
What if you look back and you stood in front of the class or to other group of patients or students, what would you recommend? What would you tell them? What would you recommend for the students? Because sometimes people feel, gosh, I can't do that. It's,
Yeah.
it's not possible.
I think some of the lessons that you taught in the beginning were really mind blowing to me. So I think that
Like what, for example?
like the lemon, where we talk about the
Imagery?
lemon, that really shows people, I think, the connection. So I think that really remembering, or maybe not remembering because not everybody can, but I would say really reminding yourself of that power, that you can do it, that it is, the skills that are necessary are not external, they're internal. Like you can. And as many voices in your head telling you you can't, they're disturbingly all wrong. So that's something that I had to keep telling myself. And so hearing other people say that, that's something I would tell other students, is that you can do it. And then those lessons, the lemon lesson, the rat experiment about hope, that's kind of an intense one too. But again, it really shows that. And I think that it's those lessons, they stuck with me. So those little bits of knowledge.
Yes, I'm very impressed by your commitment, but your courage and also your willingness to really do the practices, and equally looking at yourself. It's just like even Newell's section, when he said, I have pain is a very big concept. But then by breaking it down into almost tangible pieces, sharp pains and tightness, you can always work on the tightness with the warmth or something. And that already, when you get a change in that, then you feel there's hope and possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's grown, confidence within me as well, knowing that I can, I can go back to the same physical state that I was at before the accident. It's a big thing for me.
Well, I would put it differently. Even now, I would say you can never go back to the same state. You can only go back. The arrow of time goes into the future. You can only be the best Jillian, who has now learned and grown from this experience. So she'll be even richer and wiser and warmer, all that, which is a different part. Because if we go back and we want to just be like the Jillian before the accident, it's almost, she'll have the accident again.
Yeah, no, definitely not doing that. And yeah, that is very true. Like, have definitely grown a lot since then. A lot of the things that I had to kind of go through after the accident, where I would say, like, focusing on my health was something I always thought about, but the accident kind of forced me to make those thoughts actions. So
yes, and what I hear is really that there was a period, maybe I'm wrong, of feeling powerless and helpless for a long time, being almost realizing the pain will never go away. I'm almost trapped in this body.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially because, like, after a while, people kind of start expecting you to go back to normal. They're like, oh, well, I mean, like, go back to your job, or like, well, I mean, you did PT for 3 months. And I'm like, well, that's not really all that I needed. Like, so that, and that not juxtaposition, that clashes with what I was thinking inside, which was that I still had work to do on my recovery. So the self-healing project really helped me get some of that work done. And I know there is still work to do. That's another thing I would say to the students is and you said it too, like, you will relapse. There will be some times when you don't do the practice. There were some times when I didn't, but again, like, sticking back to that, I still can do it, really helps remind you that, all right, I messed up yesterday, but it's a new day. I can do this today. So
yeah, every day is a new day, and you have a new option to do it again.
Yep.
I think that's really is true.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think I am truly impressed by your courage, like I said, by your will, and also your willingness to share this with others. And hopefully it will be useful. I thank you so much, Jillian.
You're very welcome. Thank you for letting me share this.